Sauron and Morgoth, the two Dark Lords of Middle-earth, were united in their war against men and elves, yet they were fundamentally opposed in nearly every other way. Morgoth emerged as the original source of evil, a being who thrived on chaos, fragmenting his power through countless corruptions that diminished his essence in a nihilistic pursuit of ultimate destruction. In contrast, Sauron was a cunning spirit, twisted in his desire for order and dominion. He concentrated his strength into a particularly powerful artifact. But how could such polar opposites share a common dark goal? And how could they work together so effectively despite their differences in methods and ambitions? In this video, we will explore these questions and more, unraveling the contrasts between the two Dark Lords of Middle-earth. In the beginning, there was Eru Iluvatar, and from his mind, he created the Ainur, granting them the gift of song. As each of the Ainur began to sing, the great music known as the Ainur unfolded. While the Ainur's melodies harmonized beautifully, one among them, Melkor, the most powerful of the Ainur, began to weave a melody of his own. His voice rose in discord, challenging the surrounding music. For a time, Melkor's theme held sway, but Iluvatar's overarching theme could not be subdued. He sent forth a single, resounding note of such power and finality that it silenced all others. In that moment, Iluvatar revealed to the Ainur a vision of a world taking shape before them, a place destined to be the home of men and elves. He told them that this world was born from their music, each note intricately woven into its creation. Iluvatar informed Melkor that his dissonance would ultimately serve only to enhance the glory of the vision, revealing that nothing could exist beyond Iluvatar's will. Consumed by shame and anger, Melkor desired a creation of his own, where he would be the master and lord, commanding others to bow to his will. This was denied him, for the flame incorruptible, the secret of true creation, was with Iluvatar alone. Melkor, now known as Morgoth, descended into ardor, and even while he waited in the depths of the ocean, his head rose above the clouds, his eyes burning with heat and piercing cold. He resolved to sow ruin in the works of the Valar, seeking to transform light into shadow and order into chaos. Sauron, originally known as Mairon, was also one of the Maiar and participated in the great music, though he was far less powerful than Morgoth. In ardor, he was counted among the Maiar of the lesser order and served all the smith. Like his master, Mairon was a great craftsman, but it was not only his profession that defined him. He was driven by a desire to see all things ordered efficiently, free from waste and decay. In his mind, he envisioned a world perfectly tuned to his ideal. In those early days, it was virtuous for the Valar to prepare the world for the arrival of the children of Iluvatar, and Meren's talents would certainly have been beneficial. However, the spirit of Mairon soon grew dark. During the years of the lamps, while the Valar still dwelled on the island of Ulmarinn, a malignant force moved unseen in the shadows. Morgoth wandered there, planting seeds of corruption and recruiting those among the Maiar who could be turned to his service. Mairon was one of the Maiar who heard Morgotha's call. Morgoth appealed to Meren's deepest desires, speaking of the power he needed to establish his vision of order. Although Mairon did not immediately side with Morgoth, he remained loyal to the Valar. Even as he walked among the Valar on the island of Ulmarinn, he became a spy for Morgoth, observing and reporting back to his new master. Morgoth, aware of Meren's secretive alliances among the Maiar, knew that he had converts within their ranks. As time passed, Mairon openly declared his allegiance to Morgoth, and together they became known as the Umayya. Mairon took on the fearsome form of a Balrog, becoming one of Morgotha's most powerful warriors. However, Sauron was distinct from the other Umayya. He was not merely a brutal instrument of war. His spirit was sharp and cunning, while Morgoth was a raging storm that unleashed chaos upon the world. Sauron was like a hidden dagger, lurking in the shadows. When Morgoth first descended into the mountains, his malice and ambition reshaped the land. Even Sauron, with his cunning and terror, was but a flickering flame compared to the inferno of Morgoth's raw power. Though he wielded a powerful ring, Sauron was merely a distant echo of the glory Morgoth once commanded. He took on a visible form, dark and terrible, towering above all others like a mountain wading through the sea, crowned with ice, smoke, and fire. Morgoth and Sauron reshaped the land, with Morgoth raising mountains and plunging valleys into the sea. They wrought destruction wherever they went, ensuring that peace and growth could not endure. As the Valar began their work, Morgoth would inevitably undo or corrupt it. When the Valar established their first home during the Years of the Lamps, bathing the world in mixed light, Morgoth descended from his stronghold in the north and cast down the lamps. The colossal lamps fell to the earth, reshaping the world forever. The island of Almarin was consumed, and from the waters of the Great Lake, two vast inland seas formed. The Valar fled westward to Ammon, seeking refuge from the devastation wrought by Morgoth. Through this tumultuous history, we see how Sauron and Morgoth, despite their differences, became intertwined in their dark ambitions, each reflecting the other in their quest for power and domination over Middle-earth. As a shield against Melkor's wrath, thus fortifying in their new realm, and when he saw his time, Melkor revealed himself, and he made war again on the Valar, his brethren, and he threw down the lamps, and a new darkness fell, and all growth ceased, and in the fall of the lamps, which were very great, the seas were lifted up in fury, and many lands were drowned. Then the Valar were driven from their abode in Almarin, and they removed from Middle-earth, and made their home in the uttermost west, in Ammon the Blessed, and they fortified it against the onslaught of Melkor, while Morgoth sought domination through sheer power. Sauron's strength lay in his cunning and his abilities of deception in the Peter Jackson films. Sauron appears in the midst of battle clad in blackened steel, a towering brute whose mace could scatter armies like leaves upon the wind, and he is only defeated due to a lucky swing of a sword in truth, although he was undoubtedly formidable by the measure of men and elves. Sauron was not renowned as a great warrior in the books. As the last alliance of elves and men laid siege to Barad-dûr, he remained behind his walls for 7 long years, for he hesitated to face his enemies, directly emerging only when no other path remained, and when he finally joined the fray he was defeated in combat by Gil-galad and Elendil, and though it is true that both of these legendary heroes paid with their lives, the fact remains that he was slain by a man and an elf whilst wearing the one ring upon his finger in the very heart of his realm where his power was strongest, and consider the moment when he was confronted by Lúthien Tinuviel and Huan the Great Hound of the Valar. So great was the horror of his approach that Huan leaped aside, then Sauron sprang upon Lúthien, and she swooned before the menace of the fell spirit in his eyes and the foul vapour of his breath, but even as he came falling she cast a fold of her dark cloak before his eyes, and he stumbled, for a fleeting drowsiness came upon him. Then Hanon sprang, and he took his foe by the throat, and pinned him down. Then Sauron shifted shape from wolf to serpent, and from monster to his own accustomed form, but he could not elude the grip of Huan without forsaking his body utterly. Then Seian yielded himself, and Lúthien took the mastery of the isle, and all that was there, and Huan released him. Though Sauron may have lacked the sheer earth-shattering might of Morgoth, he possessed other gifts that his master did not. His mind was his greatest weapon, and he possessed a wisdom tempered by patience, and an intelligence as cold as a winter wind. Sauron mastered the art of deception, weaving webs of influence so fine, and yet so strong that none could see them until they were caught fast like a smith at the forge. He worked his plans with precision, hammering and shaping hearts, as one might shape iron, bending them to his will, until they gleamed with a dangerous light of their own. Through cunning and charisma he offered gifts too, tempting to refuse, spoke promises too sweet to doubt, and planted seeds of ambition or fear deep within the souls of those he sought to control. He moved among kings and craftsmen alike. Their minds were as for his dark forge. He promised power to the weak, knowledge to the curious, and peace to the weary, all whilst cloaking his true intent. And so, though his power seemed lesser in the reckoning of raw strength, through his wisdom, his guile, and his unrelenting patience, Sauron came far closer to achieving his ultimate goal than Morgoth ever did. The deeds of both Sauron and Morgoth were shrouded beneath the same cloak of darkness, yet their motives and their ultimate goals were in fact utterly opposed to one another. Sauron wished for the world to endure, for he desired all to bow before him, the master of efficiency and the architect of perfect design. Sauron desired to be a god king, and was held to be this by his servants. If he had been victorious, he would have demanded divine honor from all rational creatures and absolute temporal power over the whole world. Morgoth knew his prey well. He played upon Mairon's frustration at being but a lowly servant of the Valar, and offered him what the lords of the West could not: power unbridled and immediate. With Morgoth, Sauron would not merely serve. He would rule over many as he stepped into a new life where countless minions beneath him carried out his bidding. Thus, Morgoth made Mairon an offer that could not be ignored. His strength intoxicated Sauron, who believed that by aligning himself with such a force he could achieve his own ends. However, there was one problem. Morgoth's heart was a furnace of hate, and his purpose was spite in its purest form. His every step, his every action was bent toward the making of the world, which Sauron wished to one day rule. This was sheer nihilism and negation, its one ultimate object. Morgoth would no doubt, if he had been victorious, have ultimately destroyed even his own creatures, such as the orcs when they had served his sole purpose in using them. Melkor could do nothing with ardor which was not from his own mind and was interwoven with the work and thoughts of others. Even left alone, he could only have gone raging on till all was leveled again into a formless chaos. It may seem paradoxical, even unbelievable, that Sauron would follow a master whose ultimate goal was the destruction of the very world he sought to rule, but the logic is clear when one peers into the blackness of his mind under the Valar. Sauron would never ascend beyond his station, and he would never be able to enact his vision for the world, as he would be forever bound to their collective will. Morgoth, on the other hand, offered freedom from the rule of the Valar, but more importantly, Sauron admired Morgoth's might. Even if he did not share his madness, it was Morgoth's sheer potency that first caught Sauron's attention. Because of his admiration of strength, he had become a follower of Morgoth, and fell with him down into the depths of evil, becoming his chief agent in Middle-earth in the shadow of Morgoth, where others saw despair. Sauron saw his best chance to bring about his vision for the world, and thus Sauron fell not due to a shared vision, but as a calculated next step towards his ultimate goal. Morgoth and Sauron each wove their essence into the fabric of existence in vastly different ways, diverging in both method and magnitude. Sauron poured his essence into the creation of the rings of power, but mainly into the one ring, a vessel small yet potent, concentrating his might and amplifying his innate strength. Morgoth, in contrast, chose to scatter himself across the material world. His essence seeped into the very bones of the world, poisoning existence itself. He did this not out of a desire to magnify his power, but out of sheer malice. He wished to stain all things with his spite, leaving no corner of the world unblemished. But at length Melkor returned in secret, and far in the north he made a hidden dwelling. Thence he sent forth his power, and turned again to evil much that had been well begun, so that green things fell sick and rotted, and rivers were choked with weeds and slime, and were made rank and poisonous, and the breeding place of flies, and forests grew dark and perilous. The haunts of fear and beasts became monsters of horn and ivory, and dyed the earth with blood. With every act of corruption, every wound inflicted upon the earth, he poured his essence into the world, bleeding his black spirit into the veins of ardor. This blight upon creation would come to be known as the marring of ardor, but this dispersal of his original strength meant that Morgoth spent himself like a flame, devouring its fuel, and as his essence spread, he himself became diminished. Yet this was no accident. Morgoth chose this path knowingly, for it was his purpose to wound Ard so deeply that none could heal the scars. In doing so, Morgoth ensured that evil would never be a fleeting intruder, but a part of the world's being forever. Yet among my people, from wise unto wise, out of the darkness comes the voice saying that men are not now as they were, nor as their true nature was in their beginning. They say plainly that men are not by nature short-lived, but have become so through the malice of the Lord of the Darkness, whom they do not name. That I can well believe, said Finrod, that your bodies suffer in some measure the malice of Melkor, for you live in ardor mad as we do, and all the matter of ardor was tainted by him before you or we came forth. At first glance, Sauron's decision to concentrate and amplify his power may seem the wiser of the two options. The more rational course, yet in doing so he created her in his own armor, while Morgoth ensured an enduring legacy, and in a sense made himself immortal in binding himself to the ring. When it met its end, so too did Sauron, and as he rose as a great shadow above the host of the west, and a great wind took him, he was left as nothing more than a powerless wraith, bereft of shape or form, unable to wield influence upon the physical world any Longer Morgoth, however, etched himself into existence in a way that transcended his defeat. It is true that his relentless corruption of ardor drained his strength, leaving him diminished, a broken being incapable of standing against his foes. But even after he was overthrown and cast through the doors of night into the void, his legacy lingered on, and he lives on in all of men's woes. He is the worm in the fruit, the blight in the field, the flicker of madness that stains the minds of those who dare to look too deep into the void. And so, although Sauron's tale ended with the destruction of the ring, Morgoth's legacy lives on, and it shall endure until the very ending of the world. Thank you very, very much for tuning into Realms Unraveled. We would like to take this opportunity to light the beacons and call for aid. If you did enjoy this video, we would ask that you kindly click the like button below. Also, we would be very grateful if you would consider subscribing and clicking on the bell icon. And until next time, farewell, fellow explorers of Middle-earth.